It's really an honor and a privilege to be invited to this very important forum. Um, I been given a specific task to talk about my learnings from the air crash that I experienced in 2020. But really, on this forum and this kind of gathering, one would have talked about many things, including the governance piece and the development piece and the financial inclusion. But today I'll just confine myself to the topic that has been allocated to me. Uh, I have been given 20 minutes, but I think I will overshoot. So please bear me on this one because I really want to share all my learnings in detail um, with you all. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to speak at the prestigious AFI Forum, which is happening after a gap of 2 years. While still online, rather than in person, organizers Cardano Development and Footlight International deserve a round of applause for making the effort to bring such a stellar event together, organizing a wide range of talks spread over these 3 days. Topics covered have included environment, climate finance, financial inclusion, gender, social impact financing, fintech, digitalization, leadership, and governance. I'm here with you today to share some of my learnings on the meaning and significance of life, the kind of learnings that only a close brush with death can provide. The 22nd of May 2020 was an interesting day, to say the least. There seemed to be a sense of urgency in the air. The day's routine activities appeared to be rushing by, as it to hasten the day towards its fateful end. I was traveling for the first time after having taken charge of the Bank of Punjab as one of the largest banks in Pakistan, as its president and CEO, departing from Lahore to arrive Karachi in time to spend Eid holidays at home with my family. My first 6 weeks on the job had gone better than what I had anticipated. I was filled with a sense of reserved excitement and a cautious satisfaction, lest I allow myself to become complacent. The flight was smooth. The only anomaly was observed close to the timing of landing. The aircraft made contact with the ground 3 times, the metal of the aircraft's belly grinding violently against the tarmac of the runway, only to abruptly and sharply take off again. The anxiety in the cabin rose in tandem with the plane's ascent, as this was an unusual occurrence. The plane circled around once more, and a few minutes later, attempting another landing, the engine suffered catastrophic failure, and the ill-fated aircraft came crashing towards the ground. In a plane carrying 99 passengers and cabin crew, only 2 survivors lived to tell the tale: myself and another gentleman. Considering the odd of living through an air crash, it is clear to me that our survival was not short of a miracle. The most overwhelming aspect of this whole incident was that about 30 seconds before the crash, I came to accept the inevitability of the impending tragedy. I found myself facing this feeling not with fear, but with a quiet, calm resolve. My life, all the moments between my childhood up until boarding that plane, flashed before my eyes. In those split seconds of self reflection, time appeared to slow down. This introspective evaluation of my time in this world brought me to the conclusion that my life had been okay and that I had no regrets to speak of. I had never been afraid of death, and I found myself ready to face it bravely during those moments too. I have a firm conviction that my God is by my side at all times and that I communicate with Him every now and then. I regard my internal dialogue, what you may call a gut instinct, or the voice you hear in the back of your mind, as His speech. My interactions with my God are always frank and open. Just before the crash as well, I turned inwards, speaking with myself and my God, and the response I got was totally unexpected. I could see that the crew members were bracing themselves for the worst, and I knew with irrevocable certainty that, that their fears were not misplaced. But as I thought about the impending crash, the voice inside me told me that I was going to survive. I remember being completely engrossed in an argument with this voice. I told myself, look, this crash is inevitable. There's no way it will be averted. And still, I heard the same response from within me, the unshakable belief that I would survive even if the plane crashed. I know the very cynical among you will chalk this experience down to the ravings of a man about to die. I can say that it was every bit as profound as near death experiences in literature claim it, it is. There was an unflappable calmness, a steadiness that pervaded all my thoughts and my beings and my being. It was then that I passed out, and the worst that could have happened happened. The crash was an intense, almost out of body experience for me, and it galvanized my faith in God. I became far more resolute and committed than I'd ever been in my life up until that point. I do not know why God saved me. His reason for sparing my life is truly beyond me. That is clear. What is clear to me, however, is that I must continue to live my life with redoubled commitment, a stronger resolve, and more faith, trust, and vigor. The second most overwhelming outcome of my experience was the unconditional love and support that I had received from people around me, even from those whom I had not known directly. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have lived to see this, having come face to face with death itself, with people doubting my survival. This and the tragic loss of innocent lives that was caused by the crash makes me sentimental to this day. इसको जरा एसी को तेज करो. ये एसी बंद है क्या? इसको तेज करो. I have been exceptionally fortunate that I had the most amazing and incredible friends and family, my biggest asset by far, to keep me company, but I was racked with survivor's guilt. For months, I could not bring myself to meet the other survivor or the families of victims. I struggled to attend funerals, wondering if the family of the deceased resented me, whether my presence would comfort them or be a cruel reminder that I was given a miracle while their loved ones were not. In the days following the crash, I tried to decipher why I had been spared where so many others had lost their lives. I still don't know how to get a handle on this, and I'm still trying to cope with it to the best of my abilities. I believe I'm living a bonus life in a borrowed heaven, in the words of my favorite music band, The Course, whose special um, gift was given to me by my friend Maria Pia, who is one of the organizers of the event today. I feel I've been off. I I feel I have been afforded with the all too rare opportunity of addressing all my unfinished businesses, both known and unknown to me, as well as the opportunity to serve and help my community in particular and humanity at large to the best of my abilities, which this August gathering and forum is most appreciative of. And I must thank the organizers of AFI Forum, Rick and my friend Maria Pia, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you all. Now, the most important element of my talk. There are 10 specific learnings that I had gleaned from this unique and indeed an uncalled for experience. These 10 musings are: first learning, rituals are not necessarily the be all and the end all. These could be anything from worship rites to, to sacraments of organized religions, any established traditions that you have grown up believing must be performed with exacting precision because that is how your God likes them. Rituals can undoubtedly be important. Their psychological benefits alone have kept social scientists from dismissing them entirely as a superstitious bulge. Athletes who perform rituals before or after big events usually exhibit lower level of anxiety and higher degree of confidence. And the collective rituals often form the cornerstone of communal identities. But I have come to believe that rituals cannot consume your life or dominate your struggle towards self improvement. Good actions are the key to a good life. Actions tempered by good intentions are equally, if not more, important than thoughtless rituals. It is of paramount importance to turn intent into action. Secondly, you must have clarity on how you wish to shape your life and how you want people to remember you. You must set your priorities in light of this clarity. Psychologists often describe self clarity as clarity about who you are, which allows you to shed obsolete, conflicting beliefs and have consistent viewpoints across time. For me, the crash precipitated this clarity. I aim to be remembered as an agent of change, if not at a larger scale, then at least for the people who would come in contact with me. But whether your sense of self is solidified in the fallout of a freak event like mine, or you nurture it over time through introspection, reading, and meditation, you will only gain a true sense of purpose when it extends beyond the hemmed in, selfish boundaries of your individual self and expands to the communities or the world around you. We must become the force for positive change and the world desperately needs right now. This forum certainly trying to achieve it. It is therefore imperative for us to acquire that clarity as the effect we will have on the world in the future and to prioritize our actions and efforts accordingly. I must admit that whenever I have given this talk before, I have addressed young people who have the luxury of time and time to challenge these pre-existing notions of self, to change their career paths and pivot, to make undying optimism a part of their core personalities, or develop a cynical, hardened shell to deal with the realities of the world. But I believe this lesson is just as important in a forum like this, where seasoned investors from the financial industry have the opportunity to pursue and reflect on their work and their legacies. Your struggle towards sustainable development and financial inclusion should blossom from a clear vision you have set for yourself and for the communities your financial innovation and decisions will affect. Take some time to achieve that clarity before barreling into decision making decisions. Thirdly, on the individual level, there is goodness in people. And I must emphasize there is goodness in people. Trust in that goodness. Like any rule or generalization, there are exceptions. But the end of the day, it is your tolerance, your patience, and your ability to forgive that will be the key to forming successful relationships. We can wax lyrical about philosophical underpinnings of man's inherent nature. Multiple philosophers, all icons in their fields, have already done so. But I have come to agree with John Ifea's idea that relegating the masses to a teeming, selfish mob is often an elitist mistake. In the event of a disaster, vast majorities of people do not act as irrational, panic prone looters, but often try to organize themselves and assist others. My experience after the crash was certainly indicative of that inherent goodness in people. I was dragged out of an extremely volatile situation while drifting in and out of consciousness by a group of people who had no way of knowing who I was and who could not possibly have harbored any ulterior motives. In the days following that crash, complete strangers reached out to me with outpouring of love and helped me recover. It is therefore hard for me to take seriously any long winding philosophies about men's inherent villainy. At their core, I believe that most people are good and we must strive to be patient, understanding, tolerant with them. It falls on those who are more aware to bring the ignorant up to speed and do so with kindness and empathy to leverage the inherent goodness of individuals, thereby bringing them real and lasting change. Fourth one, arrogance is perhaps the greatest evil. We must all make it a point to address it, to kill it whenever it rears its head. This is quintessential. The core cause of this air crash appears to be arrogance of a systemic nature. From pilots' keen sense of overconfidence in attempting to land a plane that was higher than the required descent profile, to ground control slack in maintaining active communication. Humanity, and magnanimity from the part of those in position of power and authority are vital for the correct functioning of any organization or system. Rick, I've already overshoot my time, so what I'll do is I'll share. If you allow me, then I'll continue. I'll take another 10 minutes. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll share. I'll in any case share my speech with you, which you can then circulate on the network. But if you want, I can rush it through so that whatever you think. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. On an individual, organizational, and societal level, arrogance serves no purpose. At best, it lowers others' opinion of you. At worst, your inflated perception of your own abilities has disastrous consequences of you and those around you. I do not claim to be an excessively humble man, but a decent dose of humility and self-reflection can keep disasters at bay. At all of us, not all of us are pilots in charge of hulking pieces of metal dashing through the sky, but we are all susceptible to the occasional self-congratulatory thought. The time for arrogant inaction, for resting on our laurels, passed us, passed us by long ago. Nowhere is this more evident than in the way we have collectively dealt with the climate emergency, where we have failed to prevent potentially irreversible damage to the climate on a global scale because of the hubris of large scale industries and governments. We must strive to set our short sighted arrogance aside, replacing it instead with an earnest willingness to work and effect change. Fifth one, be honest and sincere to yourself and to the people around you. This is this one is rather simple. Do and say the right thing, even if it goes against the norm, even if it contradicts your interest. It may seem simple, but in truth, it is remarkably difficult to be honest to oneself. But this trait, if cultivated properly, will be exceedingly valuable to you and to the people around you. It will set you apart and will elicit the unconditional love of those that know you and appreciate this trait of yours. Sixth learning, clear all your dues, keep everything up to date. This is not merely monetary in nature, although the irony of saying this at a financial forum is not lost on me, and I do not recommend delaying others' dues or payments even for a minute. But to be honest, this is more importantly about emotions. Say things that you needed to say to your loved ones without any delay. Don't keep them pending for a second. If you need to say I love you to someone, say it now, as time may not wait for you and other people may be waiting to hear it from you. Your child have a firm belief in your unconditional love. Your friends must have your unwavering support. Your pets should trust your sincerity, even when you are forcing the bitterest medicines down their throats. They all have complete faith in you. Physical injuries can be healed and forgotten, but hidden ones left behind as the scar tissue from emotional debts that are grave and deep rooted. And if there is one thing I have learned from my experience, it is that your dues and your obligations manage to take center stage even when you are wrestling with your morality. I realized that in the 30 seconds before my crash, once your entire life is presented to you on a canvas, you begin to see what's important and what isn't, what's pending and what you could have thought, what you could have through to its end, particularly with regards to your loved ones. I no longer suppress things. I am wary of the hidden injuries I, I can cause when interacting with people, and I make a conscious effort to be extremely careful. I've told my mother everything I wish to tell her in those brief moments. I've learned that only way to be at peace with yourself is to be fair and express your emotion explicitly without any inhibitions and shyness. Number 7, I have never want to believe in miracles, but on that fateful day, I found a new meaning of miracles. I found that miracles do happen. It's surely a series of unusual events, Not one, not two, or three, but perhaps more, that make up a miracle. In my case, it was first the change of seat. I was supposed to be sitting on a window seat and ended up sitting aisle side. I believe this change of seat played a vital role in ensuring my survival. Then I had fainted right at the beginning of the plane crash and regaining consciousness when I was being rescued. Luckily, this loss of consciousness had no effect on my mental health, besides the fact that I now sometimes get emotional over things that wouldn't have elicited the same reaction from me prior to the crash. My seat dislodged from the plane, like many others, but landed directly on a nearby rooftop instead of on the road below and landed upright. I also landed on a car bonnet, which served to reduce the severity of the fall, thereby helping to save my life. And last but not the least, the area on which I had fallen caught fire soon after my rescue, meaning if my rescue had been delayed even for a few minutes, I would not have been here with you today. Now, this is what I call a miracle. The learning here is to not discount the existence of miracles and yet at the same time do not rely on external interventions to improve one's conditions. The impetus and change betterment comes from within, from intent, and from resolve to act on that intent. And I know that this group is fully committed to that intent. Learning number 8, willpower and perseverance can move mountains. Within a month of my accident, I resumed work from my hospital bed, thus making a new meaning to the term work from home to work from hospital bed. This helped me regain some semblance of normalcy in my life, which hastened my recovery. It was then that I realized that life and meaningful work are inseparable. In fact, the latter may even provide the energy for a life well lived, especially if you are fortunate enough to love your work, which is true in my case. But even for those of you who sometimes deal with a little drudgery or monotony in your workplaces, work and its associated distractions can at times be a lifesaver. I certainly needed the work I was doing in order to recover from trauma, and in return, my persistence allowed an important organization to continue to thrive, which is Bank of Punjab. You must approach work with an eagerness to learn and a willingness to devote your best efforts to it. Second last, even and number 9, even after major events that are God sent, even in the face of adversity and unlikely odds, you must still take certain bold steps in life to establish your own personality and regain your mental strength. Traveling back to Lahore 4 months after my crash by air on the same route with the same airline on the same seat was one such bold step which I am proud of. Some people misunderstood it, pegging it as a public relations maneuver on the part of the airline, which is entirely untrue. I can empathize, however, I can empathize with the anger the families of the victims felt because they had misconstrued my attempt at achieving normalcy as a validation of the airline safety protocols. If anything, I am certainly not satisfied with the protocols that airlines follow, and in fact, the infrastructure overall follow. And therefore, I've decided to set up an NGO called Zafar Masood Foundation, which will work on passenger safety and security. And I'll be coming back to this forum soon enough to present a pitch and ask for your help and guidance and seek your assistance on making this into a robust organization. But it was for my own sanity and recovery that I took that step, and I'm glad that I did it. It kept me from developing an overwhelming fear of flying, which is not something I can afford to have in my current profession. In the same vein, against all taboos, consulting a psychiatrist right after the accident was another such step. I wanted to address the possibility of post-traumatic stress head on. I did not want to make the macho mistake of attempting to unravel my thoughts and emotions on my own that many in my community make merely as a forum of bravado. Actions like these are essential, a testament to remind you that you are in control of your life and that it falls to you to strengthen your mind and your character. God gives opportunities to everyone to prove themselves. It is up to us to capitalize on them and prove our mettle. These are once in a lifetime sort of opportunities. We must never let them slip. Last and my final learning has been that I had realized that communication, I know this group is very focused on communication, is important, and even more so in times of crisis. If the pilot had kept up a steady line of communication with the passengers, perhaps he could have given people more time to come to terms with what was happening. I do not necessarily believe this would have saved more lives given the logistics of the crash, but I do believe it may have brought some degree of calm within the cabin at the end. Communication takes many forms, though. My communication with my God before the crash reinforced my faith in Him. My communication with my parents following the crash, when I informed them that I was safe, subsided their anguish and saved them from further agony. My letter to my staff before and after my accident was another major breakthrough in creating a special bond between them and myself. Finally, this communication in which we are currently engaged, sharing my experience and learnings with you, may also be doing some amount of good for some amongst us after all. Or at least I am hopeful that it does. In a nutshell, I would say that try and be honest to yourself, honest to others, honest about everything and anything that you do, including your work and profession, and above all, your relationships. Draw a line and decide on your own value system what principles you would never like to compromise on, and then stick to them. It's not important if you are successful in the eyes of others. What's important is that you're successful in your own eyes and the eyes of the people that matter in your life. It's all about empathy and making relationships and leaving impact on people and communities around you, no matter how big or small, and leaving a true legacy behind, which is indeed a core purpose of this conference today as well. I thank you all for your patient hearing, and my apologies once again, Rick, for overshooting my allocated time. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Masood. Not a problem. I think we just altered the program a bit. So on the practical side, we manage. Thank you for sharing the learnings. I would have some questions, but especially the last one resonated quite well. Being successful in your own eyes, because we do self self-esteem. We bounce it off on others. So thank you so much for the learnings. Maybe for the audience, we are starting the second session with Dina Pons. Thank you so much, Mr. Masood.
Thank you.
Hope to engage again
Appreciate it.
soon. Thank you for
And I'm
sharing with
looking
us.
forward to attending the next one in person, wherever
Yep.
it will be organized and whenever it's organized.
I will. I've reserved a couple of questions for you for that time.
Wonderful. I look forward to it. By the
Thank you
way,
so
by
much.
that time, my
Yep.
book will be out as well. I'm getting a book done, compiled a book on these learnings. So that will be out by then as well. I'll bring that with me.
Thank you so much.